Okay, the next thing for this particular chapter that we're going to focus on is understanding what particular characteristics are necessary to be considered living. We have responsiveness, all right? And by responsiveness, what we mean is reacting to a change. So, and that thing that you respond to is considered a stimulus, all right? Stimuli for plural, right? What we're talking about here is the idea of responsiveness is if you were to reach onto a stove and by accident you were to touch that hot stove, there would be a response. The stimulus would be that heat, that hot burner, and your response would obviously be that you would quickly pull your hand away, possibly say ouch, maybe some other choice words, but that would be your response. You respond to these particular changes in your environment, to the things that are happening to you. In addition to actually having that conscious responsiveness, there's unconscious responsiveness or involuntary. So right here, we have an example of an involuntary response. The idea that if you have a lot of carbon dioxide in your blood, so you're working out really, really hard, your body is producing plenty of carbon dioxide as it's using its energy in cellular respiration, right? You start to get a buildup of carbon dioxide in that blood. As a result, there's going to be an increase in the breathing rate. That means that more oxygen will come in and all of that excess CO2 will be able to be expelled or exhaled in your breathing. So responsiveness is going to be a crucial characteristic for life, for organisms to be able to respond to their ever-changing environment. Growth is another example, all right? And by growth, we're not talking about a change in shape, all right? By growth, we're not really focusing on necessarily gaining weight. We're really talking about increasing size, growing, all right? More cells, all right? We're talking about the cells needing to be replaced, and instead of them only being replaced, we're exceeding the loss. So this is the idea that you are building more and more and more of these particular cells, right? And by building more, you're actually growing in size. So all living things, all organisms are going to actually grow. In addition, one of the other key characteristics of life is reproduction. It's natural that organisms want to reproduce. Nature says that a species wants to continue. All right? Reproduction is how organisms continue on that species. The idea that the continuation depends on there being new organisms created. All right? And in order for those new organisms to be created, all right, there needs to be the process of asexual or sexual reproduction. Obviously, in the case of humans, we're talking about sexual reproduction. In addition, reproduction also occurs at the cellular level. Right? At the cellular level, the cells need to be able to reproduce. That particular reproduction that we're talking about is mitosis. Right? For growth and repair. Just for typical maintenance, there needs to be reproduction of cells in order to maintain life. Respiration. Oxygen coming in, right? So we should know that when we talk about respiration, we can talk about cellular respiration, oxygen going in, carbon dioxide coming out, and what we end up with is that that energy from food. So we should know that the oxygen and our glucose, C6H12O6, are what are going in, and as a result, what's going to be coming out is carbon dioxide, we've got some water vapor, and we've got ATP, that energy, all right? So that's what we mean by respiration. When we're talking about respiration, we're really not focusing so much on breathing as much as we're talking about cellular respiration and the process of cellular respiration for obtaining energy. Digestion is another key characteristic for living things. Basically breaking down what you eat and what you consume into a simple form. right? The reason that that food needs to be broken down is so that it can be absorbed into the bloodstream and can be carried through the cardiovascular system to all of your different cells. So the idea of eating a piece of bread, your body doesn't absorb bread, but it will absorb glucose molecules from the bread. As that carbohydrate gets broken down into more simple sugars, right? We know that a carbohydrate is a complex carbohydrate is bread. That should be a polysaccharide that as it breaks down, it becomes a disaccharide, monosaccharide, and such. So it's important for that digestion to occur so that nutrients can be absorbed. Linking to that is the idea of absorption. Substances need to be able to pass through. We know that when we talk about a cell, we've got carbon dioxide that needs to be able to get out. We've got oxygen that needs to be able to get in, right? We've also got water that's traveling in both directions, in and out. We have nutrients that need to come in, right? There's all these different things that need to be able to pass at the same time, right? We have lungs. Please bear with my atrocious drawings, right? You have your lungs, which are bringing in your air, right? Is moving through. And as a result, we need to have all of those blood vessels, right, that are around our lungs. And the oxygen needs to actually be able, this is our blood vessel, we need to be able to have oxygen that passes from outside into the bloodstream. And then once it actually gets to a cell, it needs to pass the other direction, right? So it's important for absorption to take place. The most common place is when we're talking about digestion, right? Obviously, what you digest needs to be absorbed. Circulation is important, right? Circulation is another characteristic of life. The idea that these substances are going to travel through your body fluids, all right? You've got nutrients, you've got carbs, you've got your fats, you've got your proteins, vitamins, minerals that are necessary for traveling around the body, and gases at the same time. They all need to be carried through circulation. So when we talk about fluids, all right, we're talking about water, all right? When we talk about nutrients, we're talking about carbs. We're talking about fats, which is a lipid, right? We're talking about proteins, minerals, vitamins, right? We talk about gases, we're talking about oxygen, we're talking about carbon dioxide. So all of these things need to actually be transported around the body to make it to all of the cells. Assimilation, right, is another one of the key characteristics for living things. This is the idea that different molecules can be changed, all right? This is really what we were talking about before, right? When we talked about respiration, we talked about cellular respiration being one of our other characteristics, and the idea that you can put glucose and oxygen in, and what you can get out is carbon dioxide, water, and ATP. We've got all of our basic atoms. We've got our carbon, we've got our hydrogen, our oxygens, and the same thing on the other side, carbon, hydrogen, oxygens, all right? But the difference is that we've changed them, all right? We've taken those molecules and we've converted them into another form. So the idea of breaking things down, complex into simple forms, right? Or digestion, like respiration, respiratory system, circulatory. All these different systems require the ability to transfer molecules, change them from one thing into another. And excretion is our last characteristic of life. In order for living things to survive, wastes need to be removed. And by waste, I'm talking about carbon dioxide. I'm talking about water vapor being a waste. I'm talking about fecal matter being waste. right? I'm talking about urine being waste.